Andrew Bembridge from Grow Together Edmonton. Thanks to council and administration's hard work developing and engaging with the community over these last few years, building up from the city plan, zoning bylaw, and now district plans. So as Jacob mentioned, district plans do need supervision. So technically we're in opposition to the current draft aspects of these bylaws. So next slide, please. And there's a little bit about us, just to repeat the slide Jacob had. Next slide, please. So today, my presentation is focusing on the other half of our recommendations, and I added a bonus extra one. And based on some banter between councillors and our speakers, that sounds like we have some interest in the room for that. Next slide, please. So, like I said, with all due respect to the administration, we definitely need some revisions on this. And before we get too far into it, I just wanted to respond to some comments made by some speakers today. And I want to be clear with the language used in the meat, what I call the meat and potatoes of the district planning. Support, consider, mitigate, and discourage. None of these words block engagement, infringe, or disenfranchise, and don't trample anything at lower levels like the zoning bylaw. So don't worry, this is not blowing up years of legislation or statutory plans. So let's get into it and leave the delaying and the reconsiderations for years and years to come back at home. Our city's changing, and it's for the better. Next slide. Sorry, and just to back to, I went a little bit too far. The initial point on that slide was that essentially to speak out the line for the full extension noted corridors up to 2 million, that really locks us in to a lot of inorganic growth and things that are staged to be quite set for, and that's a lot of people coming in, for about 750,000 people coming in to meet that 2 million mark. That's a lot. So on this, for this slide, I just wanted to kind of really mock up using examples from other district plans. What if I snipped out my own neighborhood of Okentowin and placed it anywhere else in the city, especially south of the river, adjacent to the center city nodes? And what would it look like if I applied some of the rules that we have in place and why they are not great for conducive to growth? So if we look at this one for Okentowin, if we applied generously the boundaries of the urban mixed policies and secondary corridors and locked us in 2 million, we wouldn't get Okentowin in 10 years. We wouldn't get Okentowin almost ever if we applied these same rules and never changed them. And I personally fear that I don't want to lock in my neighborhoods, especially in the center city, to bring revitalization to our mature neighborhoods to that. Next slide, please. So yeah, like I said, no need to imagine what it would look like. Best case with Okentowin would have a long journey absent the rules present underneath Center City or the district nodes. And Okentowin's basically a district node all by itself, despite the fact that it's surrounded by other heavyweight district nodes or even major nodes at this point. Combined together, we call them Center City. I mocked up, also using the rules based on collectors and arterial roads, what would be actually supportive of beyond low-rise development. So when we say low-rise, we're talking about 4 stories or more. Currently, RS allows 3.5 stories, basically. We're going 1 more story up, and we would barely be able to fill in Okentowin, including the 400-meter TOD radius that's being adopted from the existing 2012 policy. Next slide, please. And next slide. So the urban mixed policies 25, 25, and 25, 26 receive a lot of attention. They're a great start, but they're being outmoded. We need to move beyond the 400-meter TOD radius. That's going to 800, like Jacob mentioned, becoming a new federal standard and overall federal standard for the rest of the country. We don't consider bike plan investments, and we have policy in the district policy already that supports this kind of activity. And we also make low-rise apartments kind of noise walls. We don't want to put poor people, force them all along noisy, polluted corridors. Next slide, please. So just as a quick demonstration, think of a chocolate bar, squishy nougat, hardened protected shell. Are we really achieving the goals in urban mix that we want to? And are we putting people in harm's way inadvertently? Next slide, please. So I want to introduce the idea of this trail-oriented development. We have lots of active transportation investments. Why aren't we tying them in? Why aren't we using them? It's a fundamental part of our transportation policy, part of the city plan, the bike plan. Why isn't it tied into district plans? And there's easy mechanisms to do that as part of all the different parts of 2.4 and 2.5. Next slide, please. Next slide. And a couple of those are just examples of the positive feedback loop and synergies you can build into our active transportation.
I am sorry.
And thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much
thank
for
you.
joining us.